Hey, it's Jeremy, and it's time to talk about Conclave.
And therefore no need for faith.
Okay, this film was extremely my shit. I absolutely loved it. An adult thriller. No kids, no phones, no action, just potential popes. So conclave is the process where a new pope gets picked. So when a pope dies or when he resigns, I'm not sure if they resign, cardinals from around the world get together in a secluded building in Italy for a grown-up popularity contest. They have numerous rounds of voting, and then whoever gets to a majority vote becomes the next pope. If need be, they have multiple rounds of voting per day. It can take up to a few days. And as to be expected, the longer it takes, the public starts to wonder, is there something wrong in the church? Some infighting that would signal something weird? Some cardinals are more progressive, some are more old school and don't like the decisions made by the previous pope. So there's a lot of stuff going on. The film is directed by Edward Berger, who directed the amazing All Quiet on the Western Front remake, which was my number 5 in my top 10 favorite films of 2022. It stars Ralph Fiennes as Cardinal Lawrence, who is the one in charge of running the conclave and making sure that everything goes to plan. Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow are two potential popes. And the legendary Isabella Rossellini is the head nun who heads the group of nuns who make sure that the food is there, that help with accommodations and whatever for the potential popes. Full disclosure, earlier this year when I found out about this movie, I went out and bought the book and read it, the book by Robert Harris, and I absolutely loved it. I often do this when movies get announced and the plot sounds interesting. And if they're based on a book, I go and I read the book.
There is a novel and there's a movie, and they're two different things.
Last year, Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, that was announced 2 years ago, and I read the book at that time. The book is amazing. It's actually better than the movie. And I also have this great thing where once I finish a book, I forget all about it. 2 weeks after I'm done, I couldn't tell you the first fucking thing about any book that I read. So in the case of a movie, when I watch it and things happen, it's oh yeah, I remember that. And for Conclave, I actually did remember who the final, who the choice for Pope was going to be, but I had completely forgotten about a twist that happens after that. So it goes without saying, the film is an amazing adaptation of this book. I love when movies are just people in rooms talking and everything gets revealed little by little. People are not what they appear to be. Everyone gets to perform. I feel like a lot of people in my generation and some of my friends, when we're watching a movie and then there's action and stuff and then there's a conversation, people just dive into their phones. But for me, that's when I kind of lean in and it's okay, this is for me. I'm more the type of person that will look at their phones when there's a fight scene happening. But anyway, I try not to look at my phone ever. Movies are precious little things that I really want to pay attention to. So anyway, for this to be as thrilling as it is, you can imagine that the cardinals don't pick the pope on the first vote. I think they end up voting 6 or 7 times. And each time someone gets more votes, something is revealed. It changes kind of the current of where the votes are going. And then the last person standing, not really, because it's not in a process of elimination, but the person that's chosen in the end, no one would have really seen it coming. And then after the pick is done, something else is revealed. Another bomb is dropped that no one could have ever expected. And I'm seeing a lot of people online being the ending is going to be super divisive, blah, blah, blah. And who cares? This is a movie. It's taking a very current and of the moment subject matter and kind of adapting it to this ancient process and tradition. And honestly, it's touching on something that people have been kind of discussing and talking about in terms of Christianity and its rules and who makes them and why can't they be changed. So it's it's super timely, and then there's this age-old question, and then there's obviously Christianity at the center of it. So it's kind of a perfect storm. And I'm obviously not going to reveal the twist, but I think it's amazing. And once people get over the shock factor, they might just ask themselves questions.
I think it's great to come away from a film with questions, not with having received a message.
And like I said earlier, the performances are really amazing here. Ralph Fiennes gives a tremendous lead performance. All this shit keeps happening around him, and he's kind of the person at the center trying to keep it together and get this fucking conclave done. But there's things that happen that kind of push him to make some moves of his own, and just to make sure that the church doesn't end up in the wrong hands. I think we can fully expect Fiennes to be nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. Stanley Tucci is also really good here. And he could end up being nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but I wasn't necessarily floored by his performance, as other people seem to be. I had really high hopes for John Lithgow because in the book, his character is kind of like the juiciest, but his storyline was kind of reduced in the movie.
I shall pretend this conversation never took place.
And he's good, but it doesn't really leave. He doesn't have like a scene. Sister Agnes, played by Isabella Rossellini, also has way fewer scenes than she does in the book, but she's really, really great.
The welfare of the sister is my responsibility.
And
There's a lot of moments where we're just watching her listening to things, or just like walking around, and I loved every second of it. I think her legendary status in the industry and who her parents are and blah, 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 it might help her get a Best Supporting Actress nomination. She has never been nominated for an Oscar ever. So even though she doesn't have much screen time, I think this could potentially happen, and I would be 100% down for that. Other nominations the film could get: Best Picture, definitely. Best Director, why not? Best Adapted Screenplay, possibly. Best Cinematography, sure. Best Score, I fucking hope so. The score was one of my favorite things about this movie. It's contemporary sounding, but there's also like an old school 90s thriller vibe to it that I really, really loved. It's by Volker Bertelmann. Production design, yeah, why not? So I can't say enough about this movie. I really, really loved it. I miss movies like this. I want like 50 more of these per year.
It's a really complex story. It's a kind of movie that isn't necessarily made anymore. Fewer and fewer of them made every year.
I'm going to call them like conversational thrillers. I think you can put courtroom dramas in this as well. And when people are talking and actors are acting, I'm there. And surprisingly enough, the Friday 7 p.m. screening that I attended was sold out. So this could potentially be a big hit. It was mostly seniors, which makes sense. People who I guess don't go to the movies often because like with the superheroes and the horror movies, there's not much there for them these days. So they really showed up. But it's not just for them. Like this film is PG, it's for everybody. And I'm sure Gen Z will love it because there's no sex in it. There's no guns, there's no bullying, no one gets hurt. It's just power plays and deception. I gave this movie 4 stars on Letterboxd, and honestly, I think I should have given it 4.5. But I rarely change a rating once I log it, so I'm sorry, Conclave, you'll have to stick with 4. So definitely, if you're interested at all, check it out as soon as you can before people ruin it for you on Twitter.
It seems the responsibility for the Conclave falls upon you.